Okay,
And the YouTube, this one takes a little bit longer.
okay. I think, Tom, we'll just give it one more minute before we officially start. I can see we have a number of people for a quorum, but let's just give it another minute to make sure anybody else joins.
Okay, we are good to go on Zoom and YouTube.
Okay, so we'll start at 6:31, everyone. All right, and so according to my clock, it's 6:31. So welcome to the April 3rd regular meeting of the Board and Estimate and Taxation. Before we start, Madam Clerk, would you call a roll, please?
Mayor Rilling, Mr. Abrams,
Here.
Mr. Constant, Mr. Frayer,
Yeah.
Mr. Jelleret,
Here.
Mr. Cassimis,
I think you're on mute, Artie. He's,
I see you. Miss Yang,
I'm here.
thank you. Miss Yang. Okay, Mayor Rilling, Mr. Constant. Miss Yang. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4. We have a quorum.
okay, thank you. We'll get started and hopefully others will join along the way. We've got a fairly full agenda this evening. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the May 6th regular meeting, the March 22nd, excuse me, the March 6th regular meeting, the March 22nd public hearing, and the March 28th special meeting. Can I get somebody to move that into discussion?
So moved, Troy.
Thank you, Troy. Any changes, amendments, additions, revisions to any of the meeting minutes from those 3 meetings? All right, seeing none, can I get a vote to approve the minutes as recorded? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Staying, I wasn't at the meeting.
Thank you, Artie. So the minutes are approved. Next on our agenda is special appropriations. There are none for this month. There are, however, a significant number of transfer items beginning on page 38 of our package. So Tom, do you want to kind of lead us through the discussion on the transfer items?
Sure, I'll touch on the
I'm gonna make a
department
motion.
briefly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yeah, sorry. Can we move the?
I'll move it.
So thank you, Artie.
All right, yeah, the first one is police department, looking to transfer money for car and van accessories. This is to be clear, not to purchase actual vehicles, which would be a capital item. And we have Chief Walsh and Mickey Dosimo on the line to talk to this one.
Good evening, Chief. Good evening, Mickey.
Good evening, Mr. Abrams. I'll just make a quick comment and then I'll take any questions. This is the beginning of my end of the year balancing of all the accounts. It's a little early, so this is just a short item. As you know, we continue to have issues with supply chain and getting cars on time and so on and so forth. So our purchase of actual vehicles has been smartly moved by Tom Ellis into the capital budget because there's no fiscal borders. This transfer is for accessories on some funds in our operating budget that we have reprioritized. We left that line item open for this very purpose when we did transfer the money to capital. That's pretty much about it. I will be coming back in May for my general transfer to balance the entire budget. This is just something we're getting out ahead of, so the board can kind of view it on its own.
Okay, thank you. Mickey, can you just give a rough description of the type of accessories, just so we understand what's inside that? If you're speaking, you're on mute, Mickey.
Yeah, these, I believe these are a lot of computer-related items, you know, different things for like the laptops. I think the chief is just weighing in too.
Good evening. Yes, everything from the light bars to the sirens to the partitions in the back that we use to separate the prisoner cages from the officers, to the rifles, locks, to the equipment things. They've all gone up quite a bit. Our average, what we call an upfit, once we buy a car, it gets delivered to a fleet auto dealer that does all the upfits that we call. They install all these items to make it roadworthy for the police officer. They were averaging $14,000. Now with all the inflation and everything else in supply chain, they're averaging $20,000 to $24,000 a car. So the inflation has driven up all our costs, and we actually had to go to different parts that are no longer available. Everything from modems to laptops to the stanchions that hold the laptops. The amount of electronics that goes in these police cars nowadays is tremendous.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Any other questions on that interdepartmental transfer?
Yeah, how many new cars are we talking about?
We have not gotten a new car in 2 years. We had actually placed an order 2 years ago with Ford, and those cars are not going to be built. We got an email from Ford stating that they actually took 9,000 orders too much in America, and with supply chain issues, technically we haven't gotten a purchase of cars since the 2021, 2022 fiscal year. So we had to improvise, and we've gone to the Chevy police package. And we were able to find those in Massachusetts. So in totality, we're buying 17 police cars. That may sound like a lot, but we average about 8 to 10 per year, and we haven't gotten a car in over 2 years. So what we're getting is 2 years worth of fleet in 1 year, because the supply chains and the police packages and American-made vehicles has changed. The Ford, the Dodge is no longer making a police package in an SUV. Chevy and Ford is unreliable right now in delivering their product. So we canceled our existing order, and their price went from $39,000 a car to $49,000 a car, and we were able to buy the Chevy at $39,000 a car. So we've done everything we can to try to keep down cost and also find inventory, because the cars that we have now are getting old.
So are these new cars coming this year or next year?
We have already 5 delivered, and they're up at the place being upfitted, and the other 12 are probably be here within 30 to 60 days and hopefully be on the road by September. It takes a long time to have all these cars upfitted. It takes a long time.
But when are we going to take delivery of the cars? Because that's next year's expense, isn't it?
Again, though, let me remind everybody, the cars themselves are the capital. This is the accessories that they're transferring into a department.
That's my, Ed, you're absolutely right. But what I'm saying is that we don't need all of the upgrades this year in that case. If the majority of the cars are coming next year in next year's budget, the money should be in next year's budget.
44 is a power of attorney for her elderly parents that have dementia.
Well,
Again, though, Jim, what I would suggest is we can get the parts now so that as the cars arrive, it's paid for in this budget, it's in their current fiscal year budget, rather than asking them to absorb more into an already full FY24 budget.
But he just said that these cars go to a place where they're updated. It's not a question of getting all the equipment and then us installing them.
No, it's not about installing, it's purchasing the accessories, so that when the
And
cars
having-
come in, they can be upfitted by the upfitter quickly and expeditiously, which is the same thing.
Excuse me,
quickly.
but I got the impression from the chief, maybe I got it wrong, but he was saying that we have to send these cars out to an outfitter or upfitter, whatever you want to call it. And when you get a police car, you send it to that service and they do all of this stuff.
Right, with the accessories that we purchase, which the chief and Mickey want to transfer in their budget to acquire now.
The cars go directly from the vendor to fleet because we can't use them until
Right.
they're just a blank car.
Right.
So they have to have all the equipment. On it. So for an instance, we had to pay $45,000 already just to start buying the stanchions and the laptops because all this equipment needs to be there for them to. So I think last time I spoke to the deal, there's 5 there now, which are broken apart being installed. I think another 7 are being delivered. And by the end of this fiscal year, they'll be actively worked on. But it's such a process to put these cars, they have to take the cars completely apart.
Right.
They have to take
I get what you're saying, but when you first explained this, it came across as you sent these cars to an upfitter who fitted them all out, and the bill was 24,000 as opposed to 12,000, which was last year. But if we don't have the cars yet, then that becomes an expense for next year, not for this year. That's all. But if you're telling me now that all 8 or 7 or 8 of these cars are going to be in before the end of the year, and it's all going to be this year's expense, fine. Is that what we're saying, or is it the other way around? It's going to be.
Yes, sir. Yes. Sorry.
I'm sorry, chief, it may just be my audio, but you're breaking up very
It's
badly.
breaking up.
Yes, it'll be this year's fiscal year's expense.
Okay, so I believe you just said, yes, this will be.
I'm
this
sorry,
fiscal-
that's accurate. Yes, you are right. Yes, it'll be this fiscal year's expense.
Okay, all right. Any other comments on the police department transfer? Before we move to fire, I figure we'll approve all the transfers at once. All right. Chief Gatto, I know you're on the line. Do you want to speak to the fire department transfers?
Chief, if I can just jump in real quick, just to give you guys a little background, recall our discussions for the 2024 operating budget about the heating oil and gas. Well, we have an issue for this current fiscal year as well. So Alan and Neil in building management take care of many of the buildings in Norwalk, but not all of them. So Chief has got a request here to take you through on the buildings that the fire department's responsible for.
Yep.
Okay, first, I think there's a little bit of confusion. This account that we're looking to transfer $32,144 is the motor vehicle diesel fuel account. It's not the building heating fuel. The account number is our motor vehicle automotive fuel account. Right now, we're sitting at $228, and we have a $4,000 March bill that's due that we anticipate. Since last December, we were averaging about $8,000 a month for diesel fuel for all the vehicles. So that's the purpose of this increase, is to get us through the end of this year for diesel fuel.
Okay.
Should we go to the next one?
Any questions on that from anyone? Okay, then Chief, let's go to the next one, please.
Okay, the next one is a mechanics motor vehicle parts. We are requesting $90,000 to be transferred into that account. Right now, there's right now, sitting on our accounts payable desk is $30,000 worth of invoices. And the mechanic estimates between 15 and 20,000 per month for the rest of this year. So that was 60 plus the 30, that's where we come up with 90. I know it's a lot of money, but he claims that our motor vehicle parts have all gone up. Some of them gone up over 100% since last year.
And again, Chief, just for clarity, you're looking to transfer this within your own budget out of wages in the fire department budget.
Yeah.
into Auto parts or motor
Yes.
vehicle parts, excuse me. Auto
Yes.
parts won't work real well on a fire truck.
No, you're right. Yes, sir.
Okay. Questions, comments about this recommended transfer? All right, Tom, Ops and Public Works and Building Management, you want to tee that up before we go to the department? heads?
Sure. So we've had discussions probably over the past year or so about the new school in South Norwalk. So the city is in the process of taking over that property. And before they start demolition and building, there are some maintenance and repair and upkeep costs associated with that building. So it's One Meadow Street is where it is. And I believe we have Alan Lowe and Neil Rennie on to talk on this one.
Hi, good evening. It's Alan.
Hey, Alan.
Hi. I'm sorry, let me hold a second. Yeah, what happened is the city acquired Hatch and Bailey site last year for the new South North School. And as part of the purchase, the tenant, which is Hatch, the owner becomes the tenant to us. And they have a lease responsibility. I think for last year, they pay us about $70,000. Also, Colville Landscaping is still on site until end of this year. So we are collecting so far, I believe, roughly, I would say about $100,000. And with Hatch and Bailey leaving the site as of end of March, there'll be like miscellaneous utility, we're keeping the water line surface open, electrical. And I don't think that much more than that. So I needed $5,000 just to have an account so that we can pay those utility bills. Not that we're using any, but in terms of line charge and stuff. So we still have some expenses. And potentially we may get to begin next year. So I may have to request some money next year also for operating expenses for snow removal on the perimeter of the property and stuff like that. So generally speaking, I need $5,000 to get through the rest of this year.
Okay, and this, you're recommending, Tom, the finance is recommending we take this out of contingency?
Yeah, so when we get to the next transfer, you'll understand why they don't have a whole lot of money left to transfer internally. So in our view, this is exactly the reason for contingency, new items that come up that were impossible to plan for.
And I believe this is the first contingency request we've had in this fiscal year, correct?
It is. Our budget is $1,330,000 and we have spent nothing so far this year. So this is the first one.
Okay. Questions or comments for Alan? Okay, thank you, Alan. Let's move to the
Thank
next
you.
items.
Okay, and then the final one is more on the gas and heat story. These are the properties and buildings that fall under building management's jurisdiction. And we have Neil Rennie on the line to talk to these.
Good evening. We're just, again, I don't know if I spoke prior about this, but again, home heating fuel or home heating fuel and natural gas has gone up quite a bit for us. Heating fuel went from $2.38 a gallon to $3.96, and natural gas had a big increase from $6.37 to $15.65. And we're looking to, I think it's $170,000. Tom, is that correct and change?
127 and 50. Yeah, 177. Yeah.
177 so we can continue to operate to the end of the year.
So just to give you the breakdown there, 50,000 of that is coming from an underrun in their wages and salary account, but that's going to pretty much finish them off for the year on a department level. And the balance of 120, it's called 128,000, is going to come from contingency.
Okay. Questions for Neil? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to ask for a vote to approve the transfers as documented. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, all the transfers are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
The next item on our agenda is, let me make sure I state it correctly, is other business specifically, and first, the appointment of auditors for this year, and then after that, the approval of the Wpca budget and the parking authority budget.
Right.
So
So,
Tom, I
yeah, this
assume
is,
you'll speak on the auditor on page 44.
say again, Ed?
I assume you will speak to the auditor.
I'll kick it off. I think Chitsame is on the line here to speak to that. I do not see her, but I can tell you that this is, I believe, the third year of a 5-year contract with the CLA. Used to be Bloom Shapiro. I know Henry and Chitsame have both said that they have a constructive and positive working relationship with these auditors. They think they do a comprehensive job. And are recommending that we sign for another year.
Okay, before we have discussion, let the record show that Kendrick did join the meeting at 6:50 PM.
Sorry, I'm late, guys.
No worries.
Tom, just a quick question. This is year 3 of 5.
Excuse me,
Is this a
Troy,
set-
can we move the, do we have
Oh,
to
sorry.
have a
I'm sorry.
motion, please?
Yep, so can I get a motion to move the discussion on
So moved.
auditors?
Oh,
Hold
so
on.
moved.
Thank you, Jim.
Sorry, Troy, did you have a question? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, just real quick. Is this a set contract? I say this year is 101, but was this an original 5-year contract and this is just the number, or is it changed every year based on the amount of work, or do you know?
I don't think it's changed at all. I think it's pretty consistent, but I'm not positive. I know we have hired them for some add-on services to look at different funds. But this is what we would call, I guess, just our basic audit of the general fund and capital and such. So I don't know the exact layout of the numbers year over year, but I would assume it's probably pretty consistent.
Tom,
Yeah.
can you at least confirm that the 101 is earmarked within the budget at this point in time?
Yes, it is. We're in, that's, I think it's in the CFO line for Henry under auditing services.
All right, too bad if Henry was, yeah, I think it's a 5-year contract, but it just would have been helpful if they put it in there, that's all.
Okay.
I mean, with the dollar
I
amount being-
excuse me, I don't believe that you go to a 5-year contract, it's not an automatic thing, so it may be for 5 years, but it has to be approved every year. I've never heard of an auditor that gets a 5-year contract.
Yeah, there
Well, I
might
think that, well, that's why we're here tonight to,
escalators or something. I'm not sure if this one, it would have been nice.
So I think that's
Tom,
what
when-
Tom is saying too. Tom is saying that that's why we're here tonight.
Yeah, Tom, when does this need to be signed or approved?
um,
It says 30 days before the fiscal year end or something like that.
So that would say.
Yeah, I'm
What
not sure.
What I'm basically asking, since neither Henry or Chitsame is available to speak to the questions, do we have time to table this until next month's meeting?
don't know. I don't want to say yes and find out that we don't. This is an April 30th deliverable, so.
The sentence says the notification must be made at least 30 days before the end of the fiscal period of the entity of which the audit is required. So I don't know what that, if that date works or not.
Quite frankly, this
Isn't it 6:30?
is kind of an automatic thing. I mean, we're gonna use the auditors, so we should be approving it. But I have no problem with delaying it for another month if you want to, but this is.
No,
kind of-
I'm,
Yeah,
Look,
I don't want to table it. I just want to, we can get clarification after the fact. I agree with Jim. I mean, we need to get it done, but
that's fine. I just didn't
Okay.
want to paint us into a corner if we were uncomfortable with not knowing enough information. If we're all comfortable, and Tom, you're saying the line items in the budget, so be it. So with that, any other discussion on the auditor? All in favor of improving the auditor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The auditors approved. The next item on our agenda is review of the WPCA operating budget. Can I get a motion to move that item? Can I get someone to move that item to discussion?
So moved.
Thank you, Artie.
All right, I see that we have Ralph and Vanessa on the line. And with Ralph, one of the cooler backgrounds of all of Zoom world tonight. So, take it away.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ralph Kolb. I'm the Senior Environmental Engineer for the Norwalk WPCA. Including the board package is a memo to your board. And just to talk about the WPCA, it's an enterprise fund for the city. It oversees the operation and maintenance of the 18 million gallon per day wastewater treatment plant, 22 pump stations, and approximately 205 miles of sanitary sewer collection system. This year, in February 21st, the WPCA Board of Directors approved a 3.5% rate increase. That information came out of a dynamic financial model that the WPCA created several years ago and continues to annually update. The financial model is a great planning tool for both operating and capital budgets and future capital bonding for finance. Veolia and WPCA partnership is going to be starting its third year. And this past year, we continue to enhance the system by using technology. One of the areas that we've increased technology is deployment of 14 smart covers throughout the collection system. And what that does is monitor wastewater levels in those 14 locations. And if we see a surcharge, the team can send crews out to react as needed. We've also, with Veolia, they've actually flown drones in our large diameter pipes. So anything over 36 inches, they're able to fly a drone through. So it's just another way to televise and assess the condition of large diameter pipes. Lastly, pump stations. We continue to enhance pump stations by adding a backup control system. Right now, we monitor all 22 pump stations via SCADA, which is our software communications. But in case the main PLC or the computer at the station goes down, we have a backup float system that will engage to prevent sanitary sewer overflows. Several key items in the operating budget that I want to point out. Well, before that, I just wanted to let the board know too, in September of 22, the WPCA submitted a collection system master plan update to the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Within that plan is a short-term and a long-term strategy to continue to preserve our main assets out there underground. In addition, this year, in June of this year, we will be submitting our facility plan update for the treatment plant to DEEP. And that's looking at wet weather, aeration system, blowers, final settling tanks, and some return sludge. This is all purposes to continue to preserve, a major asset of the city of Norwalk. Several key operating line items include the rate increase I mentioned earlier, 3.5%. It equates to a $14 residential per unit fee increase, a $20 commercial flat rate increase, and 35 cents per 1,000 gallon consumption rate increase. Norwalk is set to receive approximately $50,000 in credits from the state for nitrogen removal. In 2022, we just found out we were fifth. We were ranked fifth in the state for nitrogen removal. We also include we provide additional services to the city in the amount of about $136,000 that we bill to the city. On the revenue side, on the expenditure side, the city actually bills the WPCA for various services like assistance with IT, the finance department, and that equates to just over $692,000. The O&M fee for Veolia is anticipated to increase approximately 4% due to inflation. And then debt service payments have been flat. However, in the future, we anticipate increases due to capital projects that we're forecasting over the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Questions for Ralph on this item?
Yeah, Ralph, this is Troy. A quick question for you. With regard to the usage, where are we with capacity with the current system we have?
Yes, Scott, good question, Troy. I know it's a hot topic. Everybody seems to ask. So the treatment plant is designed for 18 million gallons per day. Our 180-day rolling average is 11.58 million gallons per day as of the end of March. So that's about 64% of total capacity being used at the treatment plant. In our MPDS permit with the state, a 90% threshold is when the city would have to submit a plan to either reduce flow or to expand the treatment plant. So we're at 64%, 90% is the key threshold.
And what are you projecting over the next 2 or 3 years? I know we have a lot of stuff going on in the city.
So we don't project flow. It's a combination of variables. Rain events, if you have a significant wet weather year or a dry year, affects flow. We're continuing to put money into the collection system to reduce inflow and infiltration. So we're actually trying to take stormwater out of the collection system. Also, I know with development, the new fixtures are high efficient, low flow. So even though there are additional apartments going in, when you're redeveloping an area that's older, it's actually improving or sending less flow to the collection system.
And my last question about Jim and I visited that a few years ago. Very impressive site. How often do you have days where the storm, because there's a problem usually when there's a heavy storm and the runoff goes into the sound, is that correct? How many days do you have average? I know last year was a dry year, but.
So just to clarify, we're able to, during wet weather events, treat up to 30 million gallons per day through full treatment at the treatment plant. Flow above 30 MGD, we have an outfall 002, which is for wet weather. So we send flow from 30 to 95 MGD through wet weather treatment and outfall 002, which is permitted by the state. Last year, in 2022, we had one event that lasted for 45 minutes.
Thank you, Ralph.
You're very welcome.
Any additional questions or comments for Ralph?
I would just like to make a comment that, as Troy mentioned, he and I got a tour from Ralph a couple of years ago. And I think I highly recommend that everybody on the BET take advantage of that tour, if you're still giving them, Ralph.
Absolutely. If anybody's interested, let Tom know. And I know Tom wants to come down too. So
I've been asking for a year.
Yeah, let's see if we can do one. We can coordinate something for all of the BET or those of the BET who haven't had the privilege, who want to attend. So we'll work with Tom on that. All right. Any additional questions or comments? Let the record show also that Ann Yang did join the meeting. Okay, all in favor of the approving the FY 23-24 operating budget for the WPCA, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The budget's approved. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Vanessa.
Oh, thank you. Have a good night.
thank you, everyone.
Moving to our next item on page 49 of our package, the Norwalk Parking Authority budget. Can I get a motion for discussion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ann. All
All
right,
right, I see that we have Jim Travers on the line, and I see a few other names on here as well to speak to the parking authority budget. All yours, Jim.
Hi, Commissioners. How are you? Jim Travers. We also are joined with the board chair, Eric Rains, the vice chair, Matt Seebeck, and we also have our operators from LAS on as well for any questions that you have.
thank you all for joining.
Jim, do you want to just, or somebody just want to take us through highlights, variances, year over
Sure.
year, that type of thing?
So, I think, we still continue to manage a challenging environment, coming out of COVID, looking at really maintaining a state of good repair, in the system, looking at, monitoring changes for what we see is, some of our busier assets, which have been associated with the rail line. We are seeing increase of that as well as we're seeing people returning to work. We are seeing an increase in transient use. We are also seeing some increase in use with visitors such as that coming into the Maritime Aquarium. So all in all, we're starting to see a little bit of an uptick, and we are projecting a little bit of an uptick as the same, as we continue our conversations with the folks at Metro North of what they're seeing for ridership returning onto the rail line, and then the economic growth that the city has been going under. We are, we continue to manage it. The Parking Authority Board is, intimately involved in this and is presented on a monthly basis. For them, I think in this, next year, we're looking at a slight increase that we're showing in personnel. That personnel is for additional customer service at the train station. We had customer service folks pre-COVID, but also what we saw is we're making some investments into the train station to provide a customer service center on the New Haven bound side. We currently have that on the New York bound side, but adding it in there as well, and then also, as we really look to make sure that we have a state-of-the-art asset that we are presenting the best of Norwalk, we're also adding a maintenance personnel into our budget as well to just to highlight. So I think that's largely what you're seeing. We're seeing it. We're anticipating a slight increase. Even as we navigate the changes of a network, and then some of our some of our expenses are really going for some deferred expenses that we chose to put on the back burner, in the times of COVID. But I think you should know that in the past year we made significant investment to the infrastructure, new glass, and really some updated maintenance of that was identified to us through a conditions report of the Sono train station. And currently, we've been working with the community and facade improvements for the Yankee Doodle garage, and that will take place this coming year. And then we will also be updating many of our meters, those that take credit card. Deference was made in the COVID days, but those meters that operate on 2G and 3G networks are expiring this year, so we'll be updating those meters as well. But happy to answer any questions you have, or our board members or our operator.
So Jim, just a couple clarifications in what you've said. In the all other operating expense increase of $262,000 for the year, that's where you see the meters, the Yankee Doodle garage, the Sono train station upgrades. Is that a correct statement?
So we've allocated the funds for the Yankee Doodle garage. We'll see some meter replacements coming out of that, but we're also seeing some of the deferred maintenance that we did in the facilities as well that we are looking to upgrade. So for example, this past year we spent a considerable amount of time working up some issues within the Sono train station that had to do with water infiltration into the building. So we want to go after more of those. We have some lighting issues that we think that we can achieve optimum efficiency. We want to look at expanding the network more into EV charging. So there'll be those betterments that go. And I think one of the big things that we're going to be undertaking in that respect coming out of this year's budget is a new park system, or a new gated system for the Maritime garage and the Sono garage. I think we've deferred it as long as we can. The systems are failing. I think we can get, we can put through many more people with an optimal system. So we're currently reviewing some bids for those work, but that work will come out of this budget as well.
Okay, thank you. And then before I turn it to others, on the payroll and benefits line, 2 additional new headcount plus then normal.
Yep, plus
salary.
normal increases. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Questions from other BET members regarding this budget?
I have a few questions. If we could look at page 2 out of 6, which goes through your budget by various locations. The garage is up on top. They are all either monthly pay or transient being a daily parking pay. Is that correct?
I'm just sorry. I'm just trying to pull that page up.
Sure.
What page number was that in? I'm sorry.
It's page 50 in our package. It's page 2 of your budget by location.
So
And it lists
50 in
all
your
the different-
packet. Okay. So I'm sorry. One more question. One more time on the question. I'm sorry.
So all of the garages, their revenue comes from either monthly passes or transient. Transient
Correct.
being like a
Yes.
daily or something like that.
Yes.
And so I know I've made this comment before years past, but I think it becomes even more stark as we look at this one column of meters and enforcement. So we have $676,000 of revenue from the meters, but yet we have close to $676,000, and then we have $1.4 million of revenue from violations. Am I reading that correctly?
So let me just go back into.
It's the same page.
Yes, yep, on the first one, yes. So, some of what you see in that calculation, is also it's not just the initial one, but it's those, so ticket violation citations extend in violations rather quickly. It's pretty much an industry standard. The more time that a ticket remains unpaid, the less likely we are to see it paid. I can tell you that this item of bringing the variance into play is a hot topic for those members of the board, as well as staff, to bring this number in line. I think we're seeing it come into line a little bit more. We're looking for more revenue comes. It's a little hard to put the apples to comparison, because when you look at Wall Street, that's 25 cents an hour, right? The citations are much greater than that. They're $25. So the numbers are never going to be that equal. But I think we are, unfortunately, in many of the assets, we're keeping it valued, below market rate, right? So the citation isn't, but when you are 25 cents an hour for parking, on the transient end, or $35 for a monthly pass into the garage, it's going to always be a challenge, how that plays out.
Has a study been made that assesses the economic analysis, the economic condition of the area relative to where you have meters and the violations? Has there been an economic analysis showing whether or not it is supportive or a hindrance to economic activity?
So I can tell you in any community, when you have managed parking, that's when you have a build of economic development. In a recent conversation, that I had with someone, they were talking to me about Liberty Square, for example. When we didn't have managed parking at Liberty Square, there was a conversation of it's unfortunate these folks, they have to now pay for parking, and it was referred to, you weren't here at the time, but at that time we didn't have any parking, we didn't have any, there were no businesses there, so it wasn't a driver. I think that's what we're seeing in places like Liberty Square, where it turns around and it builds that. I think, we saw that the introduction of managed parking was really requested by the Wall Street neighborhood, because the street gets filled up with parkers and long-term parkers, and nobody there to support the business.
Excuse me, Mr. Travers, can you please answer my question? Has an economic study been done which assesses the hindrance or the plus side of economic activity due to the parking meters and the level of violations?
Okay, so we haven't done a study, but the managed parking is pretty consistent in a study that happens across the nation.
Right. So I understand when I look at your budget that the $1.4 million in revenue is important relative to you balancing your expenses in the fund balance. But I would posit, not having seen any kind of study or true econometric analysis, that you might be better off balancing off in the garages, but that's your business. But I would say, though, that just from personal experience and from listening to other people, that the level of violations that you have if you go down to the Water Street, the Wall Street area, is a hindrance to the economic activity in that area. And I may be incorrect. It's just maybe what people are saying, but I think it might be a consideration for your board to look at that analysis and to do greater studies, because I think a number of business owners will consider that that the ability to get a $25 ticket within like 5 minutes is a hindrance to the economic activity there.
And I think that's a fine comment for Jim and team to consider. It is, again, up to them to manage the line items in their budget. We simply need to look at, do we think it overall is fair and balanced? It's a legitimate comment and concern. I'm glad you raised it. I do want to remind us, though, of our scope and mission as we look at these.
I understand and I appreciate that. I also think that we are stewards of the economy of Norwalk, because that results in additional revenues and taxes and greater value. So I make my comment relative to the disproportionate amount of violations revenue in accordance with that.
Understood. Any additional comments?
Just a couple of questions, Jim. This is Troy. I'm curious, your largest garage is obviously the South Norwalk Range Railroad Station. What is it on a daily capacity now? I'm just curious now. Is it, what percentage do you think it is full now?
So we're still seeing it fluctuate. I'm sorry, Troy, I think I cut you off at the end. I thought you were finished.
No, just saying, obviously a lot more people are going back to work. Just curious on a daily basis, where are you at on that one?
Right, so we're seeing ridership to reclaim up to about 70% at times. It's a little bit, excuse me, a little bit harder to manage on the post-COVID time versus the pre-COVID time, because we're still having people that are paying for the full month pass at work but we're seeing the utilization not 5 days a week, but sometimes into 3. So the day of use is still varying. We haven't yet reached max capacity of the garage, so we're still seeing but we are seeing the uptick happen where we're getting higher and higher on certain days for the levels garage, but we're seeing it as high as go to as high as 70% of where we
is there a waiting list for the monthly passes at South Norwalk or not?
So we've been through the waiting. So there's no long-term waiting list anymore. We've been through the folks that had been on the wait list before and had been in contact with them. Some of them we transitioned over. Some of them still want to be maintained on the list, but they don't know, what's going to be the full requirement of their job, so that they haven't returned to that full commitment yet. So I guess we could technically say we have a waiting list, but everyone who's on the waiting list has been asked to activate, and they've deferred at this point. So I think I'll answer it in a yes and no kind of answer.
And my last question, is the Route 7, the new train station, I know it's been a little delayed, but will that be under your jurisdiction? Will there be paid parking there or not?
So that's that is under Condat, so that's not under our jurisdiction. And so
Will
they're
it-
Connecticut Condat Rail, so so that not managed through the parking authority.
Will there be paid parking there? I know in the old days it was free parking.
I think it's still vacate. I think they're going to manage the parking lot still as a free parking lot. I don't think they're anticipating ridership to increase that much
Okay.
at this point.
Jim, I believe you wanted to make a comment or had a question.
Yeah, I had one question on of the three, or the 1.4 million of enforcement or tickets, I guess they are. Is that a gross number or a net number? In other words, is that what we've actually collected?
So that's what we're anticipating from prior years, right? Which is we manage this pretty tightly to go down, but that's what we're seeing as going up. We are seeing a little bit of an uptick of people paying the tickets later, which has an increase to a higher dollar amount. And we still maintain incentives to pay your ticket right away, such as $5 off your ticket if you pay it within the first 24 hours. We're looking at other opportunities with our pay stations that we're introducing to free up a little bit of those times. But that is typically what we're seeing as trend, but certainly lower than what we've seen in prior years.
So what is the percentage of people that don't pay?
Staffy, do you have that number handy? What we're seeing for the violate it's a little bit different by area, but I think in general we staff. What's that percentage?
Yeah, I'd say overall it's about 80 to 85% collection rate. And again, it does depend on the location and the windshield payment rate as opposed to first and second notices. But it's been consistently over 75%.
So if I may comment, so that means the gross violation dollars ticketed is closer to $1.8 million.
No, that's the number. That's the total number. What you're seeing is 1.4 is our total number.
Hang on, there's a big difference there. 1.4 is what you're estimating as revenues. If you've got a 75 to 80% collection rate, the actual expense to the
revenue is going to be lower.
I can't think of the right way to say it, Jim, but you've got gross revenues, tickets issued of 1.8 million. You're forecasting a collection of 1.4 million because you're assuming a 75 to 80% collection rate.
But Staffy, I think your number is a little deflated. I think our collection rate is higher than 75%. But if you're talking about the difference, so I think it's a little bit harder to say it's higher because this number also relates to those people who don't pay their tickets on time, right?
Again, I get it, and we're down a rabbit hole here. The important part is you're expecting actual collected revenues of 1.4 million on violations.
Correct. Yes.
There are tickets issued that will be higher than that number, but that is what you are forecasting as collections based on history.
Yes.
So my question originally was, is that net or is that gross? And you went through gave me the impression that this is what you thought you were going to collect, which is
yes.
It's a net number.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Artie.
I noticed your Webster lot is the second highest in the monthly passes. And I guess the talk of the town is apartment buildings going up there. How is that going to eat into your revenue?
So it's still being, we're still looking at that. We are still looking at the opportunity for, a parking structure that is managed through the parking authority. If that does not become a possibility, then yes, you are seeing, a reduction that the parking authority will have to put in their budget long term. But the final resolution of how parking is managed has not yet been fully determined.
And one more thing on the violations. What's the average dollar amount for violation? If it's $25 or 30, because I'm just trying to get a figure of how many violations this dollar amount represents.
So the violations range from $25 up to $150. Again, the beaches are somewhat higher. That becomes more seasonal. The meter, the ticket for an expired meter, is $25 with a $5 credit. If you pay the same day. The safety violations, that we determine, the blocking of the fire hydrant, the issues where someone is blocking a lane, those are $60. But then with incremental
but the most common are going to be 25 to 30.
The most common ticket we issue is $25,
which is about 50,000 violations a year. Does that number sound right, or on the low side? Just curious.
30.
Jim, can I? Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry.
Matt Seebeck is our vice chair. Matt.
Sorry. Thank you. So it's a little high in estimation. Looking at past minutes and our operating reports that we submit monthly, we range anywhere from between 13 and 17,000, and in a strong showing last year. Obviously transient revenue went up, but also violations went up in tandem with the volume increase in last year. So last year was abnormally high. Fiscal 2022 was about 30,000. But again, as Jim mentioned before, there's a balance between paying right away and paying later, and then having those additional charges layered on.
No, I was just trying to get an idea of just the number of violations. Thank you.
Yep. Troy, I just wanted to point one other item out. So the equation of meters and enforcement isn't a true equation, right? Because that's the meter revenue. The enforcement actually takes place in every single lot, not just on the meters. So it's not an equal one-to-one comparison to the revenue that's created at the meters, right? So someone not paying in one of the lots, right? Someone parking incorrectly in one of the garages will also result in a violation. That's part of the entire picture, right? So is 1.3 in relationship to all the revenue that's generated across the table.
Okay, thank you.
Any final questions?
I have a request for information. Could we have the schedule too, with the violations broken out by garages versus the meters, if you're indicating that the violations are across the way? Because there is a line under garage, there is a line item that you can put in the violation. So if we could have that broken out.
So we don't break out, we don't have a reporting capacity that allows us to break out how much, it would be a manual process to look at what are ones that, you don't get a different code. You get a violation for, a type. You don't get a code where it is. It would be a little bit more difficult in our current system to identify each of the violations by specific location.
Okay.
Any final questions?
I just don't, I'm sorry, I don't understand that. How wouldn't you know what type of violations you're getting? How would you know whether you're getting the right amount of money and all that stuff? Don't you categorize it?
Well, because it's the violation type, right? So if you have, if we have occupying two spaces, right? So you can occupy two spaces on a street, you can occupy two spaces in the garage, you can occupy two spaces in a parking lot. What we're managing is the citations for occupying two spaces, right? We do put an identifier in there of where the location happened, such as a street, but it's much more of a, we manage the citations in its totality and not citations by, we can run a separate report, but it's not one that we put into the budget.
I understand that it may not be part of your budget. I guess if this is an additional request for information.
Or to what end? And since it's a manual process, I understand both sides of it. I want to understand what we think as a BET we would do with that information. If it's valuable, we can make them go through the manual process, but.
Well, first off, when I get my ticket, it's highly automated. It tells me what time I violated and where I violated. So if I would suspect you'd be able to.
Tell Jim that we can do it if he wants.
A violation. I'm sorry, did you say, Stathis, you can do that? So
I think
that,
staff is saying that if we can get a report if you need it, but I think there's two things. I think one, there's an issue in front of you, which is our budget. If there's an operation of the parking authority that you'd like to question, then the parking authority meets on a monthly basis and does offer the beginning of each meeting open for public comment.
very well.
So at this point, I'd like to take a vote on approval of the parking authority budget. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
Okay. Budget is approved with one abstention. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Sati. Thank you, team.
Thank you, team.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. At this point, those are all of the items that needed approvals. We will move to section 5, additional information. First on the agenda is Oak Hills.
Hey, Ed?
Yes.
So if you don't mind, I have to jump off. I have a 7:30 call as well, and I'm a little late for.
Understood, Artie. Thank you.
All right. Let's see everybody.
Night, Artie. All right, we have Alan here to talk on Oak Hills. Thank you for your patience, Alan.
Yeah, thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. Just some brief overview of Oak Hills on the month of February. From an operating point of view, obviously a quiet month for us here at the club. Basically, on the revenue side, we were $17,000 behind budget, but $16,000 ahead of last year. So I'm not sure if the budget was that well spread, to be honest with you. Our ID card budget was a little high, and we didn't make it, but we were ahead of last year. On the expense side, we were down about $8,500 compared to budget in labor. We had budgeted for a GM, haven't had one, so that obviously helped us out to about $4,000 a month. Our administrative expenses were on budget. Our maintenance expense was $8,000 below budget. So overall, for the month of February, we were budgeted to lose $36,000. We actually lost $34,000 compared to last year, where we actually lost $75,000. So the month of February, okay month, we made budget. It's a really quiet time for us, but there was some play out there, which was good because the weather was not too bad. We were playing off the temporary tees. On a year-to-date basis, we are actually doing pretty well. On the revenue side, we're $83,000 over budget, mainly on the golf side. The golf green fees are over budget, and our expenses are $76,000 under. Part of those expenses obviously will be the management salary for the GM. So what we found ourselves basically at the end of February, year to date, we are $159,000 from a bottom line perspective compared to budget, and also $134,000 better than last year. So those are the financial numbers. Any questions?
Questions for Alan?
Alan, this is Troy, real quick. I went to the meeting, they had an Oak Hills Golf Authority meeting the other night, and I talked to Alan real briefly, and I was very happy to hear that the restaurant is going to be back up and running, and you have a schedule, a daily schedule, and it will be open, new schedule, and it should be something we all looking forward to. Could you add anything to that?
So just to give the BET an update, we've pretty much negotiated, subject to city approval, a kind of a new arrangement with DDSA. Your old arrangement was to pay 10% of gross revenue. Well, there wasn't a lot of revenue last year through many reasons. There was some private party revenue, but not a lot of other revenue. So that was a problem for DDSA. We've now negotiated a different deal, which we've kind of come to an arrangement with in the last few days, whereby we're going to go to a lease arrangement whereby DDSA will pay an amount on a monthly basis rather than an amount of the gross of revenue. And I think this is a better thing for us, basically. They will continue to pay the 70% of the utility cost. And also, they will pay we want to get up to a security amount for the lease. So we're going to charge them 1/12 of what the lease is on an basis, on a monthly basis, to get up to the on a monthly basis. There was some amount of money that was left owing to us, and we have now started to take that amount of money and divide it into 12, and that will all be paid within in the next 12 months. Also, the first payment has been made. There's a payment due on the 1st of April, which was the lease payment plus also back payments. We have actually received a check. I'm pleased to say we got that check today. Together with that, I sat down with DDSA and said, we have to look at what the situation is here. And the problem was the certainty of opening. And we've now agreed that the restaurant will open Tuesday through Sunday, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. April and October, we'll look at it. We may look to change those hours in April, October. And also the content of the menu will be, I won't say dumbed down, but it'll be more of a golfer's menu so that people can really, have the expectation of going there, having the place open. And we also agreed that if DDSA wanted to close the restaurant because of, bad weather or lack of tea times, they would then communicate with someone on the authority or the next general manager, if we hire one, basically, before that happens. So there'll be communication. If it is going to close, we will communicate that to the members. So there won't be that uncertainty that I think we had last year. And I think this will work, and I look forward to a successful year.
Thank you, Al. I look forward to it too. You've done a good job there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan, I had a quick question on the arrangement now that you have with the restaurant.
Yes.
You're going to a lease rather than a percentage of the gross?
Correct. We negotiated an amount on an annual basis, which will it's a 3-year lease, basically with an escalator in the second and third year. Plus, we also do have the ability on either side for 3 months to break the lease if necessary. 3 months without cause, 2 months with cause, which was similar to the arrangement we had under the 10% revenue share.
So how much is the lease? Because as I recall, it used to be what, 6,000 a month or something that they were supposed to give us?
I believe it's been all over the place over the years. The lease is $4,000 a month, plus 70% utilities, and also on top of that is the monies that is owed, back owed, which is, I believe, I'm not sure what the exact amount is, but that amount divided by 12 is being paid on a monthly basis.
But I thought that we had, at one time, it was thought that with the arrangement of a percentage of the gross or business that he was doing, we would have wound up being paid considerably more than $4,000 a month.
Right.
And
the problem is
the
that
other
I
question,
don't.
one other question it concerns me a little bit is that when it was, I believe, $6,000 a month, he had a lot of difficulty paying $6,000 a month.
Correct. So I think we needed to work with DDSA to come with a realistic number where he could hopefully make some money himself, but also a realistic number for. And I think the thing is that his expectation had to come down a little bit because he was expecting to open this grand restaurant, whereas it's the golfers that need to be taken care of at a lower menu. He can still do private parties where he makes some money. And I think we're in a bit of a hole in a way of the timing of when all this could have been done. Not that our backs were to the wall, but we did need to have someone. But I agree, Jim, that, we'd have probably made more money, 10% of the gross, but the business wasn't there last year. And I think the business will be there this year, but perhaps not as much because of the menu costs, but it will be open and available to the members.
I think the key really is that he remain open, because obviously you don't do a lot of business with the restaurant closed. So. Well,
that's the reason why we put into the agreement that the DDSA will consult with either Oak Hills Park Authority representative or general manager, and we'll set some parameters of numbers of people on the T sheet, and you will stay open basically.
Okay, well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Alan? Alan, thank you very much for the update.
Welcome.
Tom, I see Lisa on the line. Is there anything we needed to cover from her area?
Just a quick update if you want to give her the floor for a minute or two.
I'd be happy to.
Or whatever she thinks is appropriate. If she's waited this long, I think she can. she would like to say something.
Good evening, folks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha.
Okay, great. We, at the time that the packet for your meeting this evening was being prepared, we hadn't closed the month of March yet. So I took the liberty of giving Tom our end of February 2023 spreadsheet and our narrative. As you are aware, I had to come back to you to get an extended due date for our motor vehicle supplemental billing. So that billing normally would have been due by February 1st. This year, it was due by actually today, because April 1st fell on a Saturday. So we gave them until Monday. So that was basically a $4.5 million receivable that we're collecting a little bit late. The billing did go out in mid-February, and on top of that happening, we had a computer software conversion, which you were also probably aware of, which went live on the 1st of March. It was imperative that we did it then, just due to the calendar for the assessment office, the collection office. It was either the fall or the spring where it had to be done, and we ended up doing it on March 1st. So we are still in the process of learning how to use a brand new system. It's not a new system, it's new to us, I should say. We did manage to close our month of March. I don't know exactly where we stand, but as of the end of February, we were actually doing pretty well, even in spite of those supplemental bills going out late. So in February month end, we were already at 96.54% of the levy, of the adjusted levy. In good news, our good news is the collection agency that the Common Council approved for us to use in probably the summer of last year started sending notices for us in November 2022. And they've already allowed us to collect in excess of $500,000 in what were previously considered uncollectible motor vehicle bills. You recall I come to you every year and we put bills on suspense that we don't have a valid address for and so forth. That's the files that we gave the collection agency. So we did take in a very substantial amount of revenue that we were not anticipating to collect. They are still billing for us. They will continue, and I will be coming to you later this spring with another request for suspense, because we come every year and we will update our records again and ask for another transfer. But the bad news is we're behind schedule on account of this conversion and everything else. So normally we would have been coming to you at this meeting with suspense, we're not able to do that. We were not able to send delinquent notices on time. We were not able to file our liens in March when we usually do. So we're a little bit behind, and I just wanted to make everybody aware of it in case you hear about it. We're behind with our mail processing as well. We haven't really been able to provide the level of customer service that we're used to providing. But the transition has been very rocky, but we are working on it. And I'm here to answer any questions you have. Just let me check my notes if there was anything else I wanted to tell you. No, I think that was it. Yeah, you know, as soon as we have the figures for the end of March, I will send them along to all of you.
Thank you, Lisa. First, before we get into any questions, I want to say on behalf of the board, you do an incredible job with all of the challenges and frustrating issues that you're dealing with. You know, just as a citizen of Norwalk, I thank you very much, and the board thanks you for everything you've done. So
thank you.
Thanks.
I
very much
appreciate
for
that.
My one question to you would be, I know you're behind, we're likely delayed. You would have been coming to us in the April meeting today. Do you think it's by the May meeting we'll see that list and we'll be on track then? Do you think it's longer than that? Any sense of how long a delay you're dealing with right now?
I would say anticipate June, because your May meeting is when you set your rates.
Yep.
And that's usually a pretty aggressive agenda for you.
Yep.
So I would say, you know, as long as we get it done by the end of the fiscal year, we're good.
Okay.
And we've kind of got, as they would say, bigger fish to fry. We've got some real major transition issues that we're trying to tackle too. So,
Understood.
I'm also concerned about the new billing, because we should be thinking about that as well. I'm not even sure how that's going to look. So we're plugging away.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just trying to set expectations, not put pressure.
I agree. No, I understand, and I appreciate that. I'm trying to do the same. That's why I'm here.
Okay. Other questions or comments for Lisa?
I echo the appreciation on behalf of the board and as a citizen of the city of Norwalk for Lisa's good work and hard work.
Thank you so much. Thank
Lisa?
you. Thank you. And we have a very good staff. We've been short 2 people for the better part of a year. But we are on the verge of filling those 2 vacancies, so that will make a difference as well.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Any other business from anyone?
And I do have one administrative item. I found a bit of information on the website that indicates the next meeting is on Monday, May 8th. Everything else I see is Monday, May 1st. So unless anybody has any objection, we're going with Monday, May 1st, which is when we have to set or sign off and vote on the final mill rates and taxes.
Yep.
So if anybody, I'll get that fixed on the website tomorrow, but if anybody has May 8th on their calendar, strike that.
Okay. Make sure we have May 1st. Very good. With that, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Good night, everybody.
Night,
Thank you all
everyone.
for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night. Thanks.